If all horror movies were perfect, this list would be redundant. Isn't that the point of horror? To shock you, to present you with something you didn't see coming. Maybe I'm being a little too general here. There are plenty of slow burn psychological horror movies out there too, but still, is there anything better than sitting there watching a horror movie for the first time, really soaking up the atmosphere, and then all of a sudden, somebody's head is missing, or their body evaporates, or a refrigerator crushes them and their pet salamander. A mixture of shock and awe that results from a primetime unexpected scare is impossible to replicate. You just have to find another movie that'll do it in a different way. So if you're looking to be totally floored next time you watch a horror movie, maybe skip this list. Keep the surprises, well, surprising. Hello, horror heads, and welcome back to the scariest channel on YouTube, Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your horror host, Keegan Hughes, and today we're counting down the top 5 shocking horror movie deaths you never saw coming, part 2. I regret to inform you that none of these have anything to do with electrical shocks. Apologies. If horror movies make you smile with your brain, make sure to check out the rest of our wicked filmic lists from our top 5 scary movies playlist over here. Phenomenal. Let's get going. Coming in at number 5, we've got The Car from The Mist. This is a death, or I suppose a group of deaths, that plenty of folks will have burned into their brain for the rest of time. It's the kind of event that leaves you feeling lost and nauseous. Like, why couldn't he wait a little longer? How could this happen? It's so tragic, so raw. Unfortunately, this adaptation of Stephen King's famous novella of the same title decided that the ending had to be much darker, like way darker. In the novella, a small group of survivors break through and make it out of the grocery store and onto the roads. They travel for a bit, taking a few losses as they go, but then hear a distorted radio transmission, giving them some sort of vague hope. It ends without telling us what happens to the characters we've been following. In the movie The Mist, we get a different ending. We get upset. After escaping the supermarket, they hop in a car and find David's wife dead. His house is destroyed, giant monsters roam the earth. To make matters even worse, the car's running out of gas. Instead of potentially falling victim to one of the abominations inhabiting the mist, the car squad resolves to kill themselves and be done with it. The devil you know and all that jazz. So David takes his gun, which now has 4 bullets, and domes everyone in the car but himself. A noble sacrifice, don't you think? Well, all the noble points and the grim satisfaction he got from saving his loved ones from a horrible death dissipate along with the mist as the army rolls in and saves the day. Goodness gracious, giving it all up for nothing. Didn't see that one coming. Coming in at number 4, we've got Paul and Jessica from The Descent. Staying on the topic of tragic car deaths, let's talk about the opening 5 minutes of the modern classic, The Descent. All is well. We have friends, whitewater rafting, they're wearing helmets, it's all good. We have a loving husband and a daughter watching on from a safe distance. We have a potential love triangle denoted by some sneaky leeward glances. This could be setting us up for some personal drama, but holy crap, not in the way anybody expected. As Sarah and her lovely little family drive home, she asks her husband Paul about his involvement with her best friend Juno. Maybe not directly, but he knows what she's talking about. Paul gets a little too distracted by this inquisition, and uh-oh. Instead of an uproarious fight about infidelity, we get a car crash with long metal poles through the bodies of Paul and daughter Jessica. Like, literally nothing has happened yet. No horror-themed setups, no big conflicts. It's during the setup to the setup, a family is reduced to one. People came into this movie expecting a creepy, claustrophobic cave crawl, but before caves are even mentioned, our main character endures one of the most terrible losses imaginable. It's insane. Plus, it sets up a later betrayal, which may or may not impact the 2 alternate endings. Either way you look at it though, if Juno had just kept it in her pants, this family wouldn't have fallen victim to a Final Destination style death. Coming in at number 3, we've got the Consex Scanner from Scanners. This one speaks for itself. Nobody talks about 80s horror or Cronenberg or even gore in general without discussing this classic dome explosion. And like, even going into this movie, knowing that you're watching a Cronenberg movie doesn't prepare you for the absolute destruction this man's head undergoes. It's wild. Early on, we see Daryl Revick watching a televised presentation showing off the latest and greatest of Consex scanners. Psychics with all sorts of tele-abilities, kinesis, pathy, and the like. Being a cocky, angry man, Revick decides he'll go and volunteer to be experimented on in order to really show off his abilities. And by show off his abilities, I mean explode a man's head so completely that he resembles a famous fantasy horseman. The lead up is so clinical, so dry, it almost seems as if he really will just take part in a live experiment. Folks in the crowd look on with a mixture of boredom and disbelief. Well, at first anyways. Once the quote-unquote thought experiment begins, things get a little weird. But still, it's just some dudes looking uncomfortable, straining a little. Couldn't be that bad. Oh wait. Yes, it can. A pitch-perfect mixture of surprise and splatter, this skull bomb is going to be studied for years and years to come. One more time for good luck. Coming in at number 2, we've got Russell Franklin from Deep Blue Sea. Okay, I might be a little obsessed with this one, just a little bit, but there really is nothing like it. A hyper-intelligent shark biding its time, watching and waiting until Samuel L. Jackson's character decides to give a stirring speech about the importance of teamwork and sanity, and then leaping out of the diving tank to cut him short in a flurry of surf and shark teeth. Russell Franklin didn't see it coming. The other doctors didn't see it coming. The audience, spurred on by riveting calls to action and inspirational music, sure as hell didn't see it coming. It is the perfect sucker punch. Many movies attempt this kind of out-of-the-blue craziness and only few succeed. But Deep Blue Sea did, and for that reason I must keep mentioning it in lists about surprises. Damn, and I thought Mr. Franklin was gonna make it. Honestly, all the deaths in this movie were pretty unexpected. Like, the first 2 doctors we meet find themselves face to face with death earlier than anticipated, and the only 2 folks to make it out alive are the shark wrangler and the cook. Not exactly the top billed characters for survival, you know? But hey, more movies should make odd choices and take risks like that, and then maybe they'd be a little more memorable. And maybe, just maybe, they'll show the audience something they didn't expect. And finally at number 1, we've got Bill Murray from Zombieland. Double points for this one. First of all, who saw Bill Murray coming? Unless you'd gone in knowing that he was going to be in the movie, you definitely thought that visiting Bill Murray's house was just a running gag. But lo and behold, Bill Murray is still living in the Hollywood Hills, surviving by looking and acting like a zombie. And good for him! But his presence was definitely unexpected. Then, in a bizarre twist of fate, Bill Murray, the last living star in Hollywood, is gunned down by our fearless protagonist nonetheless. Well, maybe not fearless, but still. So in a movie that nobody expected Bill Murray to show up in, Bill Murray dies a tragic death, all while playing himself, playing a zombie so he could avoid being eaten. There are layers to this gag, and it still chokes me up every time I see it. Poor Bill, he was just trying to go along to get along, and he could have provided the group with all sorts of additional info about how he survived too. And who doesn't want to watch screenings of Ghostbusters in a private movie theater during a zombie apocalypse? Fate is so cruel and so hard to predict. Does anyone have whiplash after all those unexpected twists and turns? No? Didn't lose your head like a certain young lass in the back of a speeding car? Well, thank goodness. I would hate to lose a viewer unexpectedly. It usually happens when I crack a bad joke or mispronounce something. That I can live with. So, what'd you think of the list? Did you see any of these coming, in the movies or during this video? What's the biggest shock you've ever got from a movie death? And don't say electro. Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more dogged ones from the top 5 shocking horror movie deaths you never saw coming, part 1. James Howlett says, interesting fact, the blood in the shower scene in Psycho relied on it being black and white. It was actually chocolate syrup. That's the kind of craftiness one would expect from Hitchcock's TV crew. Those Hollywood crews are too pampered. They probably would have splurged on real fake blood. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to go put a fresh bottle of chocolate syrup in my shower. Rio Uchinomiya says, talking about Ari Aster, jumping scene of Midsommar killed me. I just wanted to rush from the theater. Yeah, the high velocity skull impacts were pretty gruesome, huh? Especially with the long silent lead up. Definitely shiver inducing. Brandon M says, anyone else notice that Psycho is basically on every horror list? Weird, it's mentioned in practically every book on horror too, and it shows up in a bunch of documentaries on the topic. One has to wonder why. Vam Sun says, Hereditary is still a trash, not scary horror movie. Wrong. Al145 says, I convinced my parents to let me watch Jaws when I was way too young for it, and the little kid that gets eaten early on is the same name as me. Good times. Oh, that is an unfortunate coincidence. I'm willing to bet you still haven't been back for a swim in the ocean, eh? And that's all the time we have for today. Before I replace all my blood with sparkling water, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe for more eye-opening oddities. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. People came into this movie expecting a creepy, crawly, I mean, I wrote that, it's my fault. Early on, we see Daryl Revick. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'll just look like a snotch addict. Straining a little on the... In a pitch-perfect mixture of supplies and supplies. Oh, the sneeze is just still up there. In a pitch... Actually, let me get that a little more cheeky.